Welcome to Matters Financial, Geopolitical from a Frontier. Thank you kindly for stopping by. I'm always grateful. I did an interview with Nikhil Hira, who's the tax partner of Deloitte East Africa, and a friend, to take a look. We were covering tax issues, which can be quite dry, but he can make them a lot less so. Macro thoughts. Look at this page leader in the Sun, and I think that was the trigger for a very big sell-off in the pound that we've seen happen overnight and through this morning. I wrote about the UK asking would it exit the European Union. That was my piece over the weekend, and I sort of said that I didn't think Mrs. Thatcher would take it to a vote, exactly because I think she would think the chances of losing the vote were too high. So whilst I think it's laudable what Prime Minister Cameron has done, it's going to be interesting to see what plays out. FX options markets, increasing concern over Brexit. Sterling volatility jumps to levels last seen in 2008. Have a look at it. The pound has weakened as 4 polls put the UK on course to leave the EU after the Sun, that was the headline I showed you earlier, backs Brexit. According to David Inglis, if Britain does leave, pound sterling is going to revisit levels last seen in 1985, which is close to parity, if not parity. Then finally, macro thoughts. Premium for dollars and dollar yen FX basis market the highest in at least 7 years. Flags warning for wider world markets. One last macro thought. China's National Development and Reform Commission, NDRC, says power consumption in May was up 2.1% year on year, and that hardly chimes with GDP of above 6%. I like this photograph from David Yarrow, heading back to East Africa this week. Who knows what images I may bring home. A special one is always the goal. Yao Ming quoted as saying, when the buying stops, the killing can too. He's referring to ivory. Then I came across this quote, Camila Jose Sella, Paris Review. Humanity has pretty much come unhinged. And then I like this quote as well, Seamus Heaney, what matters is the shape-making impulse. I like this as well, a reinterpreted crab cake at Osteria Francescana, named the best eatery on the planet, the world's 50 best restaurant awards. Some of the faces behind the horrible number of people killed in Orlando. This is by Ken Roth. Now The Hill is reporting that the Orlando shooter was a regular at this gay nightclub. I think that explains a lot. FBI says the Orlando perpetrator has over 3 years pledged allegiance to Hezbollah, ISIS and al-Nusra, which is to say he was clueless. And it takes me back to that piece I wrote about the brothers Tsarnaev and the long tail. I said the Arab Spring has not even started yet. Long-standing social security nets are being shredded all across Europe. The long tail is only becoming longer. I said there are more than 7 billion of us now in this 21st century world of ours. And in a population of 7 billion, the tail is not an insignificant absolute number. In statistics, a long tail of some distributions of numbers is the portion of the distribution having a large number of occurrences far from the head or central part of the distribution. The head or central part of the distribution is normal behavior, far from the head is this extreme type behavior. Put it in a different way, there are surely many brothers Tsarnaev in this new 21st century of ours. The Byronic hero, incapable of love or capable only of an impossible love, suffers endlessly. He is solitary, languid, his condition exhausts him. If he wants to feel alive, it must be in the terrible exaltation of a brief and destructive action. Albert Camus. Let me put up a photograph of Zhoka and Zorovich Tsarnaev. The real question, and the one that we might never know for sure, is who exactly was Omar Mateen? After yesterday's shock, the ordeal began to clear. Patrons at the attacked nightclub Pulse discovered something incredible and totally absent from the initial reports. Mateen wasn't some unfamiliar attacker, but rather a regular at the bar who had been coming in for at least 3 years. A repeat visitor who used to drink to excess at Pulse, saying he couldn't at home because his family was really strict. Mateen was also on a gay dating app used by other patrons of the club, and one man reported Mateen had exchanged messages with him and a friend. A former classmate of Mateen's at the police academy said he believed Mateen to be gay, but not open about it. And I think, unfortunately, that's probably the most accurate reflection that something went wrong and led him to this extreme behavior. In January 2015, I was writing about Europe being off balance. I said the arrival of the asymmetric threat on the streets of Paris was deeply unsettling and will surely keep Europe off balance, presages a new normal. And we learned that a jihadi, an ISIS jihadi, has stabbed a police commander and his wife to death in Paris terrorist killing. Put up a photograph. I like this quotation: "The earth is speaking, but man won't listen." And then have a look at this NASA map, which shows how heat was distributed across the globe last month. The most extreme heat swept the Arctic, where ice levels have been setting daily lows for this time of year. Come summer, the ice cap at the top of the planet will likely be the smallest on record. And I said, I cannot help feeling we're like frogs in boiling water. We have created massive interference in the cosmic fine-tuning phenomenon. Put up a photograph of Oscar Pistorius arriving in court for sentencing after murder conviction. Then a very interesting piece in Asia Times, Saudi Arabia and Turkey's pipeline wars in Yemen and Syria. Saudi Arabia's pursuit of the war in Yemen at considerable cost in blood and treasure is a literal affirmation of the term backdoor strategy. However, both the door and the actual contours of that strategy remain submerged beneath the murky waters of Mideast politics. In June 2015, a senior advisor on Yemen in the Netherlands Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Joke Burunja, wrote an article regarding Saudi Arabia's interest in building an oil pipeline through Yemen. Her piece underscored the energy geopolitics behind Riyadh's bombing campaign over the past year. In her article, entitled "Divide and Rule Saudi Arabia Oil in Yemen," Burunja revealed that the Saudis fear an Iranian blockade of the Hormuz Strait and was seeking pipelines through Yemen. This would provide Riyadh with direct access to the Gulf of Aden and the Indian Ocean to reach the Asian market. Saudi Arabia and Qatar, as well as Al-Qaeda and other groups, are maneuvering to depose Assad and capitalize on their hoped for Sunni conquest in Damascus. By doing this, they hope to gain a share of control over the new Syrian government and a share of the pipeline wealth. The proposed pipeline would traverse Aleppo, where Turkey's Erdogan has been lobbying for a no-fly zone, backed by US military power and American tax dollars. Turkey is also increasing defense ties with various energy producers and building military bases abroad to access key energy corridors. These include natural gas-rich Qatar, Somalia in the Horn of Africa, Georgia in the Caucasus, and Sudan in the Red Sea. It also has troops in the oil-rich northern Iraq, northern Cyprus, with its offshore gas reserves, and is amassing troops by the Syrian border. The London Mayor, Sadiq Khan, has decided to ban negative body image adverts on the tube, buses and trains. Microsoft needs LinkedIn to conquer the office, says Leonid Beshinsky. Microsoft's acquisition of LinkedIn is not easy to understand. Both companies' chief executives, Satya Nadella, Microsoft, and Jeff Weiner, have described the $26.2 billion all-cash deal, one of the largest in tech history, in the blandest corporate speak, with memos that sounded as if they were part of LinkedIn's mega-boring attempt to create a commentary platform for business celebrities. This deal is a major play for a market no company has yet captured: intra-corporate communication. Evidently, Microsoft felt it had to move after Facebook made its own grab with Facebook at Work. Ceding the opportunity to a competitor with equally deep pockets, powerful brand, and nimble developers might spell the end of Microsoft's ambitions in the corporate world, which it used to earn thanks to Windows and Office. But where its grip has been slipping lately, so Nadella paid an incongruously high price for a company that on its own doesn't seem like much of a treat. Nadella wants his company to own the modern office. It's interesting. 6 events that could make Soros a winner, this is according to Mohammed El Arian: a vote in favour of the UK leaving the European Union, a major slip by China as it tries to implement financial policies, indications that the isolationist tone of the US presidential primaries is more than just rhetoric and posturing, a renewed scare about European banks, greater risk aversion among market participants. This is referring to the fact that Soros has taken a very long gold position. And I wrote about Soros and Druckenmiller, who with George Soros bet the bank against the Bank of England. I wonder if they're putting that bet on as well, on September 16, 1992, and made off with £1 billion. And then I was also saying in February that the curve of history from Soros skinning the Bank of England in 1992 to the Mexican peso crisis in 1994 to the Thai baht crisis in 1998 confirmed that maintaining an artificial foreign exchange rate is a fool's errand. Let's move on to the currency markets. Plenty going on. Euro dollar 112.60. Dollar index, I haven't got that at the moment. Dollar yen 106.01, Swissy 0.9638. The pound got as low as 141.24, it's now at 141.57. The Aussie 0.7378. Indian rupee 67.155. South Korean won 11.7294. The Real 347.88. The Egyptian pound 8.87. And the Rand 15.2033. Have a look at this 3-month chart of sterling, now trading 141.51. 136.50 is the next objective. And if Brexit is a go, it's going to 125. Dollar yen, let me put up a 1-year chart. My target was 105. I set that in January. We're inching ever closer. Commodity markets, gold just below 1280 at 1279.45 area. I think it's running out of steam now. Javier Blas tweeted, Brent crude oil drops below $40, $50 a barrel. Important psychological level, and I think we've probably seen the high for the year. Sub-Saharan Africa, Joshua Nkomo: the hardest lesson of my life has come to me late. It is that a nation can win its freedom without its people becoming free. Put up a photograph of Joshua Nkomo. According to Times Live, the world champs at protesting are South Africa. Took it back to Virilio, the revolutionary contingent obtains its ideal form not in the place of production, but in the street, where for a moment it stops being a cog in the technical machine, and itself becomes a motor machine of attack. In other words, a producer of speed. Old rivals, new threats, Zimbabwe's politicians ready themselves for Mugabe's death. In recent years, Robert Mugabe, the world's oldest head of state, remains president, and ZANU-PF is still the ruling party, more than 35 years after it took power. But there has in fact been a tectonic shift. Like Zimbabwean society itself, the opposition has become deeply fractured, and any meaningful cooperation between the multitude of opposition parties seems unlikely. Moreover, this fragmentation has affected ZANU-PF itself, and that's a big deal. Of course, the party has always been riven by factions, but much of what has made Mugabe so successful has been his uncanny ability to manage these conflicts and turn them to his advantage. A sense of balance has been key. That has now changed. Over the past 18 months, an unprecedented purge has effectively demolished this delicately balanced edifice. Africa regulators set to query Bank of Baroda over Gupta's. That should be interesting. Of course, South Africa's four biggest banks, Standard Group, Nedbank, First National Bank and Barclays Africa, said this year they would stop doing business with the Guptas without saying why. South African all-share coming off the highs of this year, it's up 3.59% this year. Dollar rand, last time I checked, 15.20 to 33. I think we're going up to 15.55. Egyptian EGX30 up 9.12% this year. Nigerian all-share down 5.37% this year. But I haven't seen it yet. I'll go and have a look at it. President Buhari has written a leader in the Wall Street Journal about the Naira. Go and take a look at that. Ghana Stock Exchange Composite Index down 11.97%. Mozambique has raised its key rate to 14.25% to contain inflation. Annual inflation rate is now 18.3%. The Metical is Africa's second worst performing currency this year, after the Angolan Kwanza, and has weakened 20% against the dollar. $1.86 billion of Mozambique loans are illegal, social groups are saying. A group of 26 Mozambique civil society organizations. And then let me put up a photograph of the sunrise seen from the Polana, which is a lovely hotel that Serena has in Maputo. Uganda's central bank cut its benchmark rate by 100 basis points to 15%, the second time this year. World Bank to loan Kenya $1.1 billion for northern region. Kenya will get a World Bank loan of $1.1 billion for infrastructure projects in the country's arid northern region. Loan is the latest in a series to Kenya, which amount to $5.5 billion. It is an unprecedented financial commitment to this part of Kenya, said Mateen Diop. Kenya is doing pretty well in the Africa context and in the global context, but the ambition of the government is to sustain that growth rate and accelerate it. To attain faster growth, the country needed to increase efficiency in state-owned firms, improve competitiveness through investments in infrastructure. Overall, the fiscal deficit is financeable, Diop said, adding total debt was increasing but remained sustainable at about 50% of GDP. Kenya shilling 101, the figure. Nairobi all share up 0.38% year to date, but down 0.549% yesterday. NSE 20 down 5.52% year to date. Williamson Tea reported full-year earnings where full-year turnover surged 30.7%, full-year profit after tax increased 424%, share price stormed higher to close 10.44% higher. Kapchoro Tea, which is a sister company, surged profit after tax 1,128%, and that only managed to tick 1.1% firmer to close at 84.50. But self-evidently, there's plenty of headroom now when you look at those results. Safaricom E 0.55% off a record high to close at 18.15. It's up 11.34% this year. Longhorn Kenya issued a cautionary announcement seeking to buy 74% of Law Africa Publishing, eased 2.8%. Nation Media tumbled 5.23%. It's down 14.65% so far this year. Diamond Trust was the most actively traded share yesterday. Traded 926,000 shares, all at 180 plus 1.12%. DTP is down 3.74%. Trades on a trailing PE of 7.37. KCB eased 25 cents, that's very oversold. Equity unchanged. CFC Standing up 2.94%. Britain issued a public announcement where it announced that Plum LLP, apparently it's Mr. Munga, Dr. Mwangi, and Jim Nabaru, to acquire 23.34% stake in Britam Holdings. This will mean that Plum, together with associated persons and related companies, will control 38.54% of Britam. Proposed acquisition is in order to provide Britam and its shareholders time to identify a strategic investor. Britam is up 7.3% so far this year. EABL announced on Friday that Andrew Cowan will be appointed as its new managing director, replacing Charles Ireland. Cowan's appointment is effective July the 28th. During Mr. Ireland's time, EABL has become one of the best performing markets in the edge year. EABL has rallied 9.89% so far this year. Compare that with the all share, which is up 0.39%. Safaricom, EABL, the two big caps outperforming. Once again, I'm grateful that you stopped by.